That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's go through and let's talk about these running back rankings for week 5. Now, here we're going to be considering matchup. We're going to be considering trends with the usage that these running backs have had. So, of course, make sure you stay to the end of the video as well, because I'm not only going to list our top 24, but I also have some guys that we're going to have to discuss at the end of the video that I know we're going to get a million questions about. But of course, before we dive into this, you know exactly what we have to do. We have to go through, pull up some winners for our Fantasy Flock Network hats. If you go down there, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and drop a like on the video, you are entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And our first one going over to Tyler, who says, Mason, my dude, would you give up both Antonio Gibson and Chris Carson to get Dalvin Cook? Yes, my friend, and I hope that you won a hat because you just won one. And our next one going to be coming out from Scantron, says, keep up the great work, Mason. Thank you so much, my friend, of course, for supporting the channel back in 2020 as well. I know you've been a long time member of the flock here. And yeah, outside of this, go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. They're the sponsor for the channel. You know, there's no better place to go through, look at player props. Also, get into some drafts with us in the middle of this season on Underdog Fantasy during our live streams. When you make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, you support this channel more than you would ever believe. I mean, if you enjoy the fact that we have live streamed like every single day for 100 days in a row, if you enjoy the fact that we make multiple videos every single day, there's nothing you could do to support this channel more than making that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Like, literally, you could not comprehend how much it helps this channel. Please make sure you go do that ASAP. And when you do that as well, you get a max deposit bonus and you get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. They agreed if we get 10,000 signups that they're going to fly people to Tampa, Florida to go to a Bucks game with me. They're going to do that as a giveaway for people who signed up with promo code FLOCK and also go to the Florida Flock meetup. And here they said that, and they definitely didn't believe it was possible, but please, let's show them exactly what the flock can do. Let's all round this together. Let's get there by Sunday. Sunday's my birthday, and that could definitely be the best present we could possibly have. Now, let's get into the running back rankings, and let's start it off with our running back 1, who's going to be Cordell Patterson going up against the New York Jets. I mean, with Patterson here, this is the running back 2, so of course we're joking. Don't go down there. Don't throw tomatoes. I mean, we'll talk about Patterson later on in the video. Let's go to our real running back 1 here, which is going to be a Derrick Henry against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with Derrick Henry, I mean, you know, going up against the Jags, this is a spot that Henry's going to have approximately 274 rushing yards. That's what he gets against the Jacksonville Jaguars, it seems, every single game. And here with Derrick Henry, we also have to address that we don't know if Julio Jones or A.J. Brown are going to be playing in this game at this time. I think based on the time period that they got ruled out from this past week, I would not be surprised if they miss another week of action here. And Derrick Henry's just the entire offense for the Tennessee Titans against the Jaguars. This is a defense that I really think that we can go through and start attacking. And here it's going to be very similar to what we had last week against the New York Jets. And if you actually looked at the over-under on the player prop for rushing yards, Derrick Henry last week on Underdog Fantasy, they had it at 125. Very interested to see where they're going to have it this week on the over-under with Derrick Henry. I'd imagine they put it at like 130 rushing yards. Because, I mean, you're just seeing him as a lock to see at least, 25 carries, possibly to get to 30 carries in this game. I will acknowledge that Jeremy McNichols got a ton of usage in the receiving game this past week. Of course, you don't love that if you're a Derrick Henry owner, but he has to be the running back 1 here. Now, our next running back is going to be a tier down. Derrick Henry is going to be the only guy in tier 1. This player will be Aaron Jones going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, with Aaron Jones, yes, A.J. Dillon did get a decent amount of work in this last game, but that was almost all taken away in the fourth quarter when this game was already out of hand. Yes, Aaron Jones did have that fumble, but I mean, Aaron Jones, he's been in the league since 2017. He's never had an issue with fumbling the football. I think this is something that you don't even really need to discuss. The matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals is perfect. I think you really have no questions centering around Aaron Jones, as this has been someone that impressed me, in that what I was a little concerned coming into the season with Jones with is if A.J. Dillon, the much bigger running back, was going to get the usage in the red zone. Well, no, that hasn't been the case at all. I mean, Aaron Jones still the exact role that you want him. I mean, kind of similar to what we were talking about with DeAndre Swift. He gets every target out of the backfield. He gets all the touches in the red zone. That's exactly what you're looking. The Green Bay Packers should be able to effectively move the ball down the field against the Cincinnati Bengals. Easy spot to have Aaron Jones at running back 2. Now, a running back 3 spot, I kind of thought about this for a little bit. I almost wanted to put Aaron Jones in his own tier as well, But I think that we can be aggressive with this. I think we just jam in Dalvin Cook in the same tier as Aaron Jones. And with Dalvin Cook, yes, he split this backfield this past week with Alexander Mattison. And yes, Alexander Mattison has looked fantastic over the past 2 weeks. Now, with that being said, you're not expecting that Alexander Mattison is going to continue to see this workload. If you're expecting that Madison's going to split this backfield with Dalvin Cook going forward, you just don't know how football works. You don't know the team investment that they have into Dalvin Cook versus Alexander Mattison. I mean, Madison's still someone you need to be rostering, like we said, coming into the year. This is someone that you start every single week. Dalvin Cook misses, as he does have that elite level ceiling. But Dalvin Cook here, we know that he's going to get back to his 25 plus touches per game going up against the Detroit Lions. This is a Lions defense that we just saw David Montgomery go nuclear against. I mean, obviously you should have this as a spot where the Minnesota Vikings are going to be crushing the Detroit Lions. So yeah, we're going to include Dalvin Cook in here at the same tier. If he was 100% healthy and we knew he was going to be locked and loaded into 25 plus touches, he would honestly be ahead of Aaron Jones. But given the slight question marks you have with him working his way back from his injury, I think we have to have him one spot below. Now let's go down to tier 3. And on tier 3, we're going to have a decent amount of players here. And our first guy will be Alvin Kamara. Now with Alvin Kamara, a very disappointing past week. Yes, you had this as a situation where Kamara had zero targets this week. I mean, that's not what you're used to with Kamara. With Kamara, you're used to the overall rushing workload not necessarily being that high. Maybe he's going to get 15 carries out of the backfield, but why you love him is he's going to be someone that gets 7-8 targets out of the backfield, and based on the talent profile that he has, the efficiency is going to be through the roof here. And also, he does have a great shot at scoring multiple touchdowns. Well, this past week, those valuable touches were all gone. I mean, here he sees a career high in rush attempts. You get Taysom Hill vulturing the rushing touchdowns from him in the red zone. And also with Alvin Kamara, 0 targets out of the backfield. But Alvin Kamara did run a considerable amount of routes out of the backfield. And it's just a 1 week sample of us getting very worried. Alvin Kamara, while yes, a lot has changed in the situation with Jameis Winston at quarterback, still this is a running back since 2017. Has been fantastic. You're not worried at all about the matchup against the Washington football team. At the same time, you had the injury to Tony Jones. So Alvin Kamara is going to see every single touch in this backfield. So we're going to have Kamara at 4. Of course, if it wasn't for Taysom Hill getting the red zone usage, if it wasn't for his lack of usual role in the receiving game, he would be definitely up in that tier with Derrick Henry. But for now, I think you have to have him down here at 4. Now, our next running back will be Austin Eckler at 5. And yes, Eckler, just a straight up baller at this point. Austin Eckler has looked fantastic. He looked great against the Las Vegas Raiders this past week. He's been someone getting a considerable amount of usage in his receiving game. He has been someone getting usage in the red zone. He's been someone that's playing behind a vastly improved offensive line and a really good offense. You love what you're getting from Austin Eckler overall. The problem with Eckler this week in particular is he is going up against the Cleveland Browns. We have discussed this time and time again. This Browns matchup is very bad, as the Browns have one of the most talented defensive units in the entire NFL. I will say Austin Eckler is slightly less dependent on matchup than what you'd have from another running back, knowing that he's driving the majority of his value from what he's getting in the receiving game. But still, I think we have to be bumping him down just slightly to running back 5, given the matchup against Cleveland. Now, our next running back, someone that we have everywhere because we were drafting him aggressively at the end of the first, the beginning of the second in drafts this season. We were also trading for him everywhere. We did not have him going into that Atlanta Falcons game a couple weeks ago. Saquon Barkley. Now, with Barkley as a great matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, y'all know, I mean, nobody was leading the Saquon Barkley buy low train as much as we were 2 weeks ago. I mean, we were all about Saquon Barkley buying him low, so I have him everywhere, like I'm saying. And yes, it's a good matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. I'll say the Dallas Cowboys defense definitely looks a lot better than we had initially had them coming into the year. But still with Barkley, not only the defense being a little bit better than expected, there's one thing I want to address and just try to tell everybody who traded for Saquon Barkley not to get too excited. You can't be vaulting him up above Alvin Kamara at this point. And while, yes, he just crushed the New Orleans Saints, a very tough defense this past week, I mean, that game did go to overtime. He did have the majority of that production in overtime. So still, it's a spot that with Saquon Barkley, I don't want to be putting him up in that elite running back tier. We can be excited about him, but I think he's honestly kind of fits right in here with the Austin Eckler tier of running backs, which is where we've always had him. Now, our next running back is going to be coming at running back 7. A very tough matchup, but I think that just the workload he has is so damn safe. Going to be going with Najee Harris here against the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos have had a pretty good defense so far this season. Now, of course, this was a team, we discussed going to play the Baltimore Ravens that, they were most likely just going to be getting stomped, as that was a team, while yes, they were technically undefeated going into this past week. At the same time, they had yet to play a team that had won a football game until they played the Baltimore Ravens. So the Denver Broncos, not like they're in a fantastic situation with their defense and their offense, but still, this is a game plan that I think the game between the Steelers and the Denver Broncos are actually going to be closer than most people assume. And then here with Harris, he is still getting that very safe role in his receiving game. Back-to-back weeks, I think at this point, Najee Harris may be leading the NFL at running back in receptions. That would not surprise me at all. Let me look this up right now, because here you had the 19 targets back in week 3, and then you also have him coming out and just crushing this past week in that category as well. So yeah, Harris right now has 34 total targets. That puts him at number 1. The third running back in total targets so far this season is at 22. He's averaging 3 targets more than the third best running back in this category. Harris has to be someone you're viewing in an elite tier just based on the workload that he has alone. Yes, the offense is concerning. Yes, he doesn't necessarily have that big play potential, but he's so damn safe. Now our next running back is going to be coming in here at running back 8. The last guy in this tier, actually, you know what? Let's drop him a tier below. I don't think he should belong here, even though he's crushed the past 2 weeks. So he's going to still be at running back 8, but 1 tier below. Let's go with Ezekiel Elliott against the New York Giants. And here, Giants not necessarily too worried about this matchup. And yes, Ezekiel Elliott has crushed the past 2 weeks. But also, the past 2 weeks, you've had a considerable amount of usage for Tony Pollard. I think that Ezekiel Elliott, I don't want to call him a sell-high running back, but he's not going to be the same tier as someone like Najee Harris for me. And now with Harris, while yes, he's playing on a worse offense, he's seeing every single touch here, where Ezekiel Elliott, you're a little bit more reliant on this Dallas Cowboys offense to come through and be hyper-productive. And this Dallas Cowboys offense can still be hyper-productive, and that may not necessarily mean a ton of production for Ezekiel Elliott if you indeed get this team going more through the air with the combination of Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, Elliott's been crushing. Really happy for anybody who drafted him. Still going to be a top 10 running back for us. I think we do want to have him behind the tier of guys that we just know are bell cow level running backs in their offenses, though. Now, our next running back coming in at running back 9 will be DeAndre Swift against the Minnesota Vikings. So talking about Harris leading the NFL in targets, right now DeAndre Swift at running back 2 right behind him. Yeah, we were lower on DeAndre Swift than a lot of people this past week, given the matchup that he had against the Chicago Bears. Still, I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be a defense, despite the Cleveland Browns not being able to do anything against them this past week, that this will be a defense that we're not too worried about here with DeAndre Swift. He's running a route, he's running like 35 routes a game. It's ridiculous the amount of usage that he has had in his receiving game as of late, also getting the usage in the red zone. So while DeAndre Swift isn't going to be seeing every single touch out of this backfield, while DeAndre Swift's never going to get to 100 rushing yards, just knowing how his usage in the receiving game translates over to fantasy production, I think DeAndre Swift is a great call here. Now, our next running back coming in at running back 10, 1 spot behind DeAndre Swift. I know probably people are freaking out that we have him this low. I don't care. Nick Chubb coming in at running back 10. Nick Chubb, we're standing by what we have said all season now for Nick Chubb. Yes, this is the most talented committee running back in possibly NFL history. He's in that committee with Kareem Hunt. That's why we were drafting Kareem Hunt instead of Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt getting that usage at the goal line. So it doesn't matter if Nick Chubb's going to come out. He's going to run for 100 yards against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, I'm not too worried about that run defense, if we're going to be honest here, even though I know that the Raiders did have a hard time moving the ball down the field against them this past week. If you take a step back, look at what we've had from the Los Angeles Chargers beyond just that. I think it's a fine matchup. The problem is if Kareem Hunt has this goal line usage, I think that Nick Chubb, the overall expectations have to drastically go lower. Now, our last running back in this tier coming in at running back 11 can move down. It's going to be very dependent on another running back in his backfield. But let's go with James Robinson here. So Robinson has a very strong matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Here with the Tennessee Titans, this has proven to be one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You just saw this defense allow Zach Wilson to look like an average NFL quarterback here. But with James Robinson, I know a lot of people want to go all in based on the performance we had this past Thursday night where he scored multiple touchdowns. He looked like a great running back as well. I hate to be the wet blanket on the situation, however. I do need to point out the fact that Urban Meyer still exists, that Urban Meyer is still here just taking away all the excitement that we can have, and that if Carlos Hyde does play, you are going to have Carlos Hyde getting about 30 to 40% of the carries out of this backfield. You still like Robinson for his receiving down role. So I think if Carlos Hyde does not play, James Robinson is a running back 1 for this week. But if Carlos Hyde does come back, I think you have to move James Robinson down below this tier. Now, leading off our tier number 4, I believe, of running backs. Actually, this is going to be tier 5 here, is going to be Jonathan Taylor at 12. Now, with Jonathan Taylor, as we say this out loud, I kind of want to move him a little bit lower. I think all the running backs in this tier are extremely close. Like, don't be surprised if you ask me a question on a live stream Friday night with any running back in this tier, and I give you a completely different answer than what my rankings say right here. Because Taylor, there are reasons to be concerned. Like we've already discussed, this is a player I loved in drafts, but the Quentin Nelson injury has to change your mind on this. And Marlon Mack got way more snaps than I was expecting this week. I mean, how are they using Marlon Mack this much when they have Jonathan Taylor? They have one of the premier running backs in the NFL. Obviously, you're also going to be expecting the Nyheim Hines usage. So we were above consensus on Taylor this past week, given the matchup against the Miami Dolphins. I think this will be a much scarier spot against the Baltimore Ravens, however. Now, our next running back on this list is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a running back that, yes, has trended in the best direction possible if you're looking at his fantasy points scored at the end of the week over the past few weeks. But his actual workload in his backfield has trended in the exact opposite direction, where Darrell Williams is getting more and more snaps. Darrell Williams is getting more and more touches in this backfield. Now, we're going to have Clyde Edwards-Helaire here at 13, simply based on the fact that this Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs game, you should not be surprised if this is the highest scoring game of the season. I mean, this is going to be a spot that you could easily see both teams going over 35 points. You could easily see both teams going over 40 points. And I think we need as many pieces of these offenses as we can fit into our lineup here. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to be at 13. Antonio Gibson will be at 14. Antonio Gibson, I want to say it's a great matchup in that the Arizona Cardinals run defense is not something we have to be worried about. But at the same time, you'd imagine that the Cardinals are going to get to such a heavy lead here that you're actually going to have this as a situation where maybe they abandon the run and more so focus in on the pass with what they have from J.D. McKissic, which is, of course, very much a concern because at this point, Antonio Gibson isn't really getting used in the 2-minute drill. Now, at running back 15, we're going to have Darrell Henderson against the Seattle Seahawks. Henderson looked great this past week, and honestly, Thomas, please, I'm sorry to do this to you. Move Darrell Henderson up to the top of these rankings. I think Darrell Henderson should be at the top of this tier and that you really have no questions for Henderson. I mean, he just crushes Sony Michel with the usage that he had this past week. Darrell Henderson's been running a ton of routes at the same time. This should be one of the most productive offenses of the week as well. So yeah, no, scratch what we said previously. Darrell Henderson, I couldn't live with myself if we had him down here at running back 15. This has to be someone we're moving up to running back 12. Plays on Thursday night here as well. So if you're watching this video on Friday, Saturday, you can make fun of me for where we have him. But he's a bell cow running back, one of the best offenses in football right now. I think you have to have Darrell Henderson at running back 12. Now, running back 16, I mean, this is pretty much just a blank spot. I mean, we're going to put Joe Mixon just because we don't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen with Joe Mixon. It's hard to have that accurate ranking as of now. I think if Mixon is clear to play by the time we get to like Friday or so, we can put him in at 16. If he's a game time decision, obviously you have to lower him based on what that probably means about the ankle. And there's always a chance that he gets ruled out. Maybe he's ruled out by the time this video comes out. Now let's drop it one tier lower. I believe this is like tier 6, whatever the hell this is. And let's go to a running back that I know a lot of people have been waiting for. Let's go over to Cordell Patterson, who's going up against the New York Jets. Yes, we're going to have him at running back 17. I know a lot of people are viewing it saying, Mason, you idiot. How are you going to have a running back here that is not even seeing 12 plus touches in a game? Put him at running back 17 over guys like Kareem Hunt. I know that's going to be one crowd. Another crowd's going to be saying, Mason, you idiot. How are you going to have a running back that's number 2 overall in fantasy points, have him down here at number 17 in a plus matchup? Well, I think both sides of the coin have a strong argument here for Cordell Patterson. Obviously, this is one of the hardest players to rank right now. If you're looking at a player that has scored 5 touchdowns through 4 games so far, this will regress. He really isn't playing that many snaps. He really doesn't have that many touches so far this season, which of course is concerning. But I mean, you'd imagine that his role continues to expand with how good he's looked so far. And Russell Gage, playing or not, definitely makes an impact here for us with Cordell Patterson. If Russell Gage does miss this game, I'd be willing to move Cordell Patterson up. But for now, I think we have to have him down here at running back 17, just based on the fact that the efficiency's been through the roof, but the volume hasn't necessarily been there. Now, our next running back will be running back 18. We're going to be putting Kareem Hunt here. With Kareem Hunt, I mean, we've already discussed this. This is a must-start guy whenever Jarvis Landry's out of this lineup. I was surprised to see that Hunt only actually has 2 receptions this past week. But if you go back 2 weeks prior, the first week that Jarvis was out, you get a small glimpse of what you could actually get from Kareem Hunt in a game where the Cleveland Browns are able to move the ball successfully down the field. We have seen multiple weeks that Kareem Hunt is maybe Cleveland's preferred goal line running back. It's too early to say that for sure, but it's definitely in the range of outcomes. So yeah, let's play him against the Los Angeles Chargers here. I know the Chargers have a good defense, but I think if anything, you're going to be able to score on the Chargers by running the ball. Now, running back 19, this guy could even either move up, move down. I'll tell you right now, he's not finishing as running back 19 in our rankings. It's going to be Leonard Fournette. And now with Fournette, this is like a median projection where if Giovanni Bernard plays, I think you have to move Leonard Fournette down, and that you would see Giovanni Bernard see more of the usage in the receiving game. But if Giovanni Bernard is inactive, then you have to be moving Leonard Fournette up as literally the bell cow running back here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, taking almost every single snap, almost every single touch away from Ronald Jones. He's going up against the Miami Dolphins, so it's a great matchup at the same time. I am a Leonard Fournette hater. I mean, this is not someone I told anybody to start this past week. I was very surprised by his usage. But yeah, here at running back 19, I think that it's a nice median spot, and we can adjust whenever we have the news about Giovanni Bernard. Now, speaking of being a hater of certain running backs, let's go through and let's jam in Damian Harris here. Y'all know I'm a hater of Damian Harris, but the problem is the matchup is just too damn good here. You're going to have him going up against the Houston Texans, where the New England Patriots should have no problem moving the ball down the field. At the same time, I'd be very surprised if this game's competitive in the slightest. So with Damian Harris here, while yes, he's not getting any usage in the receiving game, which is why I hated Damian Harris. And while I was laughing at people when everybody on the planet was saying Damian Harris, the best sleeper running back, the best sleeper running back, the best sleeper running back, even though if everybody's calling someone the best sleeper running back, his price rises till he's going in like the 6th round, all of a sudden you have to reevaluate your process there. Still, Damian Harris, this is going to be a spot for him to go through and crush, just given the matchup. Now, 21, the last guy in this tier will be Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds, currently 3rd in the NFL right now in targets, playing one of the most productive offenses in the NFL as well. And also, this is a running back that, I mean, just damn good. I mean, he is very talented. You've seen the efficiency so far on a per-touch basis. I think we're going to be plugging and playing Chase Edmonds at 21. Now, let's drop one tier below. I know we have some questions that we have to get to with some of these players. One tier below, we're going to have Chris Carson going up against the Los Angeles Rams. With Carson here, you have to question the usage we had from Alex Collins this past week. At the same time, a very tough matchup for the Los Angeles Rams. And Carson, so far this year, looks like he's a little bit touchdown dependent. I mean, it's surprising to say that. Obviously, you love the offense that he's playing in. You love that they want to run the ball. But if they're also using Alex Collins here, I mean, you have to lower your expectations drastically for Carson. Now, running back 23, going to have a very tough matchup as well. Josh Jacobs against the Chicago Bears. We were not all about starting DeAndre Swift this past week. While you, of course, were starting DeAndre Swift, I mean, we actually had him ranked to a point where we were getting hate for it. But I think that here with Josh Jacobs, we're going to be lower on consensus with Jacobs this week as well against the Chicago Bears defense. I mean, this Bears defense, I have to give them the credit. I wasn't necessarily wanting to say that they were the Bears defense of old coming into this season. I was talking about this being a unit that definitely regressed and was just going to get worse in 2021, but I was very wrong in that they've been very impressive so far this season. Now, 24 will be Zach Moss, going right back to what we were talking about with Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. You want as many pieces in this matchup as you can possibly have. I'd imagine that there are a significant amount of trips to the red zone for this Buffalo Bills team. Zach Moss has clearly indicated that he is the running back 1 here, so Zach Moss will be running back 24. Now, some questions I know that we're going to get right now. The San Francisco 49ers running backs, way too early for me to include them on this list. Yes, it's a solid matchup that they have against the Arizona Cardinals, but still, this is a spot that, I mean, you could be viewing it in a light that, I mean, you could have a split backfield. We don't necessarily know right now what's going to happen with Elijah Mitchell at the time of this recording. I think if Elijah Mitchell is active, you can't start either guy. And then at 2, you're going to have Miles Sanders playing against the Carolina Panthers. I'm not starting Sanders. This is something we talked about this past week. I thought that Sanders was an intriguing sell low this past week based on a multitude of actions. And here also you're expecting the Philadelphia Eagles to be trailing this game. Kenneth Gainwell took over as the 3rd down running back for Philadelphia. Also, Carolina's a game where their run defense has been pretty good. I know that they didn't necessarily stop Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard this past week, but if you take a step back, if you look beyond that, I mean, that run defense has been great. And then our last running back that we need to talk about is Mike Davis. I think Mike Davis, if you were desperate, you can go through and you can play Mike Davis against the New York Jets. I mean, he's seeing way more snaps than Cordell Patterson. Yes, you're expecting that to go down, but it's just a great matchup here. Now, thank you. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. Please make sure you go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment to get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And also, go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Get into a draft with us. Go check out some player props and support this channel more than you would ever believe. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope that you enjoyed the video. Really hope that you have a great day. And I see you in the live stream tonight.